Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Breakfast, Dinner, Supper Club, whatever you want to call it. I suppose it's not even necessarily Breakfast Club, where some of you are when you're watching on Saturday morning anyway. So we thought we'd bring it forward a bit. Thought it was probably better to do it on the deadline than do it Saturday morning when the deadline's passed, especially today. Martial didn't play yesterday. There's worries about TRAORE starting. Vardy is apparently injured or not starting tonight. We'll come to that in a second. But I've been joined by Lee, who's given up his Friday evening, or at least the early part of the evening, to join us on Breakfast Club. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I heard it was Breakfast Club, so I've bought my Weetabix. I'm ready to go. No milk, just eating them dry. I need them to calm down, frankly, actually, after what's been going on this evening.
Chocolate ones as well. Very, very nice.
Chocolate.
Yeah,
on.
so Lee, let me just quickly explain before we start talking about the team. So I'm sure most of you have seen it by now. But essentially, there's a very reliable account that's tweeted. Sean has tweeted that you can go and see it on the FFS Scout Twitter account as well. That Vardy is not starting today. It doesn't say whether he's on the bench or not. I'm assuming he probably isn't, but we don't know that for sure. So it sounds like Vardy's not starting. Obviously, we can't say 100% whether he is or not until the official team news comes out. But all I will say from my point of view is that source is good enough for me to make a decision from. So yeah, we're just gonna kick straight into it because Lee has Vardy. So I think you're probably best placed to talk about what the hell are you gonna do?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm with you on the account that's been tweeting. There was an account that was tweeting before Sean, I think, that was, we hadn't heard from before, but yeah, so we got no reason to trust or distrust that account. But as soon as Sean tweets something, you think, okay, well, there could be something in it. So yeah, he's in my team right now. I don't think I'm panicking and taking him out, right? There's a pretty good chance that I was going to take him out for Aubameyang next week anyway, given Arsenal's fixture against West Ham at home, and then the fixtures after that look pretty good. I've got a couple of players on my bench. There's only one player in the whole of my 15 that's blanking. That's De Bruyne. I've benched De Bruyne. I'll talk about my transfer a bit later on because that was a player that blanks this game week. So I have actually got two on the bench. So I've got some cover. I don't think it's great cover. I've got Cantwell coming in, but I've at least got cover. So I think not panicking, Andy.
Yeah, better unmute myself there. Yeah, if I was in your... So basically, this is kind of... It's hard to give specific advice, obviously, on every single person's team. But generically, thinking about it quickly, and bearing in mind we've only had about 20 minutes, half an hour to think about this. If I was in your position where I had bench players, I probably would keep him. And the main reason for that is, like, who do you even bring in? Most people have got Jimenez potentially. I guess if it was a slightly better fixture, that might be a bit more... rewarding. And at this point, obviously, we don't know how long he's going to be out for. He could even be on the bench. He could even be starting. Like we don't know yet. But and the fixtures are obviously good going forward as well. Obviously, there was a big reliance.
By the way, now pouring. Yeah.
Go on.
So I was saying, Sam's in the other room now, pouring over her team because she has Vardy as well. And just before I came into the room here to talk to you, she said that exact same thing. She said, "Who do I get in? Who do I go for?" Because you look at all the other players that you can afford if you get rid of Vardy, and the one she was, you'd obviously have a look at Firmino. She's got him. She's got him already. She really doesn't want to do Jimenez because that's playing Spurs this weekend. Although I think that might be where she goes. And outside of that, like you said, Andy, it's very, very, very tough to pick who it is you want to go for. So it's a difficult one.
Yeah, I think Jimenez is a good long-term pick. You could go Jota maybe as a bit of differential. I mean, if you really want to take a massive punt, you should be getting in Ighalo.
Go on.
Ighalo.
Oh, wow. Come on, man.
Martial. Well, we should talk about Martial in a sec, but Martial sounds like he's going to be out. I'll just bring up the team news picture we used earlier when we did the team news stream. So Solskjaer basically said, I don't know with Anthony, to be honest. I've not asked. Well, I mean, why would he? He doesn't need to know if his player's going to be out or not. He tried on Thursday morning. I think that was to train. He wasn't that bad, but we'll have to do a scan on Friday. So basically, we don't know what the situation is with Martial either. But I'd say he's probably going to miss this game at least. So a big punt on Ighalo, but obviously that's probably not a long-term solution. So yeah, I think if you've got bench players, I would probably just play them. Jimenez would probably tempt me. Even Ings at the moment has only scored like once in the last 5. So even he is not kind of on fire right now, although the fixtures are pretty good. So yeah, it's an interesting one for Vardy. I feel for people that have brought him in and now thinking about taking him back out.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Aubameyang is a potential one for next week. Obviously, there's all this double game week chat as well. So yeah, it's kind of all up in the air. So you're thinking of just keeping Vardy, yeah?
Yeah, I think, and like you said, if you've got the bench, don't panic and just see how it plays out tonight. Um, I can't get behind the Igalo thing. I like it. It's bold, right? It's bold, but
That is a
I'm not sure I can
massive.
get behind
Even
it.
I wouldn't do that. But like, if you really, really wanted a massive differential punt, that is where to
I
go. I
didn't
think 1 week
Ollie
only.
come out and say something like, he didn't want to play Greenwood quite so much in the Champions League because he'd suffer from burnout if he played him in the Premier League or something. So I actually think of the two, maybe Greenwood might be given the nod, but you're the United fan, Andy. What do you think?
Well, I think Greenwood definitely starts regardless because he doesn't necessarily have to play up front. Like he can play on the right and kind of cut in, which we've seen him do before with Martial. So I think Greenwood actually does start this week. So again, if you've got Greenwood on the bench, I don't think that will be the worst time to play him. I just think there's a chance that Igalo plays too, but we won't talk about Igalo for too long because it is a bit of a. I'm not even sure how serious I am about it. Yeah, exactly. So let's just quickly talk a bit more about your team. Obviously, Captain Salah. What's your thinking with TRAORE? Because I've got him too. I'm going to show you my team in a minute, and I'm really not convinced that he's going to start this week.
Me neither. I'm worried about him. Bought him in a couple of weeks ago on the back of good form, right? So bought him in for all the right reasons. And it just so happened that at the same time, or more or less the week after, Nuno Espirito Santo switches up the formation. He suddenly got Jota back and available, so he can do that. And actually, we've seen, obviously, since the switch to 3-5-2, TRAORE's been benched left, right, and centre. And of course, he did play and he did get on the score sheet in the Europa League. But Wolves' second or third goal, the Doherty goal that night, was Doherty poaching, right, in that 3-5-2. He was there in the 6-yard box for a tap in. This wasn't a kind of a Doherty assist from wide as we're used to seeing. He was poaching in the penalty area. So in that 3-5-2, Doherty's a really good option, I think. And yeah, TRAORE becomes a far less good option, in my opinion. I've got other stuff I wanted to do this week with Grealish, and I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, TRAORE feels like he might be a transfer out waiting to happen at the minute.
Okay, so you keeping TRAORE because you've already made the transfer then?
Yeah, so I made the transfer. So I did Grealish out for Fernandes. And the tipping point for that, I was already considering doing Fernandes because the impact he's had at Manchester United is fantastic, by the way. It's a fantastic player. I really do rate him. And if you look at some of the more followed Manchester United Twitter accounts, and I've got a lot of Manchester United mates here where I live and at work, everyone was excited about this guy. Everyone was excited about this guy. And even when I saw him and I looked him up on YouTube a bit, and I saw a bit when sort of other clubs were linked with him in the sort of last 6 to 12 months, I started getting excited about this guy as well. So I think he's a phenomenal asset for Manchester United. Plus he's on set pieces. Now he's on penalties. It's like, what's not to like? It just felt like a complete no-brainer bringing him in. It did feel a little bit bad. I did feel a bit bad taking Jack Grealish out because he's obviously been good for me since he's been in my side. But obviously the blank. And then I'm looking at the fixtures going forward. Yes, Grealish can score in those games, no doubt about it, because he's got that in his locker. But those fixtures are pretty tough for Aston Villa. And Aston Villa side that are really struggling right now. So in the end, felt like a sensible switch to make.
Yeah, I spoke about Grealish on a video this week, and I do wonder, even fixtures aside, not if you think about the fixtures, obviously they could very easily get pulled into the relegation zone, and then you just don't know how players are going to react to that. That could be a massive head dropping moment. I don't expect that from Grealish himself, but obviously he has to have 10 other players around him. So yeah, I can see why people are getting rid of him to us. And Fernandes does. It feels like a bit of a no-brainer. Obviously, it's a very small sample size of 3 games. 3 games in the league and a couple of appearances in the Europa League, but he does seem to be the real deal. I think that's why I know Man United fans sometimes take things a bit OTT, but it's just been so long since we had a player like this, a kind of an attacking playmaker. And yeah, the Wolves game obviously played a bit deeper, but there was other circumstances for that. Ever since McTominay's back, Fred, Matic, license to go forward, getting in the box a bit more now as well. So yeah, that's a great transfer. I'll quickly bring up my team. So captain-wise is Salah. I mean, there's not really too many other choices, I don't think. I've been a little bit.
Did you consider anybody else, Andy? Were you sort of nailed on in Sally? Consider anybody else?
I considered Firmino.
Except for Vardy, maybe.
And I've got Firmino. I was actually a bit worried about not having Vardy, and had Firmino instead. But I mean, I'd already made up my mind not to get Vardy because it just doesn't seem like the week to take Firmino out. Although next week I might still do that. I did consider him because I think he's been a bit unlucky, and we're going to go through the goals imminent table in a sec. His underlying stats are really good. He's had 5 big chances in the last 4 away, which is more than Mane and Salah combined. But as we've seen from the last 2 games, he's just, for whatever reason, and they were home games, but I don't see how that should really affect a player too long. I don't know, he's just not there in front of goal. Like, just maybe overthinking or something. There was a chance he got in the last game where he could have just taken a touch, set himself out and put it around the keeper. It just didn't happen. And it was just a bit unlucky. Like the Mane goal was just over his head. So yeah, it's just not falling for him. But I do think, for the double game week, everyone talked about how good his away form was. And I think it's a good time to play Watford as well. So I did consider him, but I just don't know if there's enough there to knock Captain Salah. He's going to get extra point for clean sheet, extra point for goal, the usual stuff we know. On penalties, Milner's not back. So yeah, it's almost like a no-brainer, I think, to go Salah. I think I'm just happy enough to have Firmino as a bit of a slight differential maybe than actually go the whole hog and captain in. But I'm still yet to make a transfer. So I have Stevens on my bench. So I could just play him ahead of Traore. But to be honest, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to switch. I'm going to keep Traore, but not play him this week. So I've got Mahrez. I've got Mahrez as well. And I just think if I look at Man City's, I just don't know when he's going to play most weeks, especially if Sané's back soon, Sterling's back as well. Like, how often does he keep getting played? Blank, Man United away, not too bothered about that. Burnley at home would be good, but can I rely on him playing in that one game? Then it's Chelsea, Liverpool, so I don't really want him. And because I've got 8 attackers that can, I don't really have a bench fodder. I want to get some money out of that midfield, so I'm probably going to go Mahrez to Harvey Barnes. So I want to nail that.
I like that.
Yeah, I want to go for the Leicester fixtures. A lot of people did point out to me on Twitter before, kind of came on, that Perez might be a good option, especially with Vardy out because he's on penalties. Yeah,
good when Vardy doesn't play, doesn't he? He always tends to hit those double digits for some reason.
Yeah, he's got more double digit hauls than Barnes. I think someone said it. Apple Bonker said it was 4-2. But I just think I'd pretty much be making that decision based on this one game. Whereas if Vardy was playing, I'd go Barnes. He's a bit cheaper. Yeah. I think recently he's looked better as well. I think I've said this a few times already this week, but I think for anyone who's thinking about going for Barnes, he can be a frustrating watch because he's not exactly the best finisher in the league, but he does get chances. So, if he gets 2 or 3, hopefully he can just put one of them away. And the fixtures are good, and he's only 6 million as well. So I think my team's in a position where I can do that. It means I get to keep Traore, and if he does keep his place, then it looks good for like game week 31, etc. And if not, he just goes on the bench anyway. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. I don't think there's any.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other huge changes that I have to make. Without talking, obviously we talked about Traore a bit. Obviously we don't think he's going to probably start. We'll have to see. What about Martial? I know of us own Martial, but if you had him, what do you think your play would be?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? And actually the news that we've had in terms of, looking like he's not going to play, that's exactly the reason I don't have him. It's such a Martial thing to happen, this. He starts hitting a bit of form, looking really good. Everyone wants to get on him, and then kind of a bit of an injury out of nothing, a bit of a training injury. I just don't see him as that reliable from that perspective. It's happened too many times for me to want to invest in him. If I did have him, I think I possibly would be getting rid of him. I don't know. I think I would be. Given that...
is Fernandes just a no-brainer? Or?
Well, if you can go sideways to Fernandes, I think that absolutely makes some sense. Elsewhere, it's tough, isn't it? And we're having the same conversation that we've just had around which striker you're going to bring in for Vardy. It's the same in midfield. You can kind of take your pick because there ain't that many decent premium midfielders knocking about, and you're kind of taking a bit of a punt, I guess. So yeah, it's if you've got somebody in mind that you want to do, I do think Fernandes is a great pick. I wouldn't have brought him in otherwise. I think Martial to Fernandes. If you want to do it, would you do it for a hit? Would you do it for a hit, Andy? Martial sideways to Fernandes?
I think I would, depending on what the team was like. So again, if I had an okay sub that I didn't mind playing this week, I probably wouldn't. But if I didn't, because I think that's just a long-term pick, there's nothing I've seen so far to make... Like, if you're already thinking about bringing in a Man United player for these 3 fixtures, Everton, City, Spurs, then you're obviously going to want him for the easy ones as well, which are coming up kind of from game week 32 onwards, maybe 31, but I'd expect Man United are going to blank that week. So yeah, I think it's just a long-term move. I think the thing you mentioned about his starts, again, I said this on Team News, so hopefully, there's more people watching this than watch Team News, so it's not necessarily a repetition for everyone, but there's an account, I don't know if you follow him, called Andrew Gower, and he was tweeting about the consecutive starts Martial has had, and this season he's had 12. I think this must be this run now.
Yeah.
And that is his second highest ever for Man United. He's had a run of 12, a run of 13. Before that, it's just 6 or 7 games at a time before he either gets benched or injured or whatever it might be. So he has gone a bit longer this time. But I think for most people now, if you were putting a team together, a free hit team or a wildcard team, whatever, and you were picking a Man United player, nearly everyone I think would probably put Fernandes in ahead of him anyway. So I think you're just making a long-term move, which is an annoying sideways move to make. But for the long term, I think you'd probably be a bit happy with it. So if I did have him, I probably would trade him for a 4-point hit, unless I had a decent bet. Like I've got Stevens on my bench, for example. I'd probably be okay playing him this week. But not everyone is necessarily in that position, especially with like all this news that's come out today. So
yeah. I think having a United attacker as well is a good option this week because Everton away looks tricky on paper, but I think they've conceded 8 goals in their last 4, so not exactly watertight at the minute. Yes, Fernandes I think is a good shout.
Yeah, he looks like the obvious way. I mean, if you wanted to save some money, you could go to the Leicester players. I think Perez and Barnes both got benched for Man City, but obviously it sounds like they're not going to get benched today, and I don't think they will going forward. I think that was just a specific for that match and trying to counter the way that Man City play. Yeah, fair enough. Just before, we'll get the official news in like 5 minutes. I'm trying to keep it on the chat. I think most of it is just saying Barnes and Vardy are or are not starting. I think there might be a few trolls in the chat there. No, not too many questions. So before we do that, before the deadline comes in, and I'll run through the team sheets, and the panic will be over. Basically, we'll go through. We'll just take a quick look at the goals imminent table. So even though Joe doesn't do these anymore, we still have them up because they're such good tables. So I don't know if you had a look at it earlier, but there's a few names on there. So basically, the way you get on here is obviously taking a bunch of shots. And not scoring. And so as Joe always says, there's 2 ways off of it. You either score or you stop taking shots. So there's a few players on here. Firmino, talked about him already.
There's your man. There he is.
I mean, what do you think he's just been unlucky? Is he just not as good a finisher as Mane Salah? What do you think it is? He's 2.67 expected goals and no goal. I mean, it's quite high.
It was genuinely unbelievable that he didn't score in that West Ham game. There was like so many chances. I think he has been a bit unlucky. I don't know about this home and away thing. I don't think there's anything in it other than it's just a coincidence. But of course, Liverpool are away this weekend, so why not stick him in? And if you want to put him as a bit of a differential captain, I don't see any problem with that necessarily. So yeah, I mean he's there. He passes the eye test reasonably well whenever I see him. He still does that little Firmino thing where he kind of drops back into that space in between the lines to kind of make things happen. But at the same time, he also pops up in those positions where you'd want him. So I think he's a nice pick, given that we're struggling for choice a little bit up front as well as in midfield. If you want to do a last minute Vardy for Firmino and you still have a Liverpool slot open, wouldn't want to argue against that, to be honest.
Yeah, I know sometimes we can watch players like this. Like obviously we all know what his job is. Tracks back, etc. And he's not necessarily the furthest forward all the time. But I've watched him. I've not really had any kind of issues with that. Yes, he comes back and tackles, but he gets the ball back so quick. He's straight away on the attack anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy with him. Obviously, there's a few players not playing this week. Aguero, etc. Sterling's still on here, even though he's not. But Bruno Fernandes is on there as well. So it's probably worth noting that, he's only had 2 shots in the box, so he does like to shoot, but not necessarily from close range. And I'm hoping maybe not over the next 3 because they are tougher fixtures, but when we get to the easier fixtures, I'm hoping he'll kind of have even more license to get forward. Not that he's not already, but I would like to see him pop up in the box a bit more. But he's already taken in 3 games enough shots to score from a penalty and still be on the table.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's pretty encouraging. Otherwise, no one else massively stands out. Benteke's on there.
Benteke and McBurney and Morpie, we're to coin a Joe phrase, we're scraping the barrel a little bit, aren't we?
Yeah, and Morpie he did score the other day, didn't he? He got rid of Sheffield United clean sheets and he's still on here.
True.
Yeah, so that is a bit frustrating. But maybe if you've kept him, maybe it's time to keep. And I'll just bring up the assist imminent as well. So there's a few players on here. So Shane Long obviously been doing very well in the Southampton front 2. Ings not really, like I said earlier, only I think it's 1 goal in the last 5 now.
Yeah, so Long's been outstatting him, isn't he, to be fair?
Yeah, he's been doing well. And obviously another one that's on here, James Maddison. Now, suddenly doesn't seem like such a good pick with Vardy out. But what do you think about him going forward? Let's assume that Vardy's over on the subs bench. We're going to be back next week. Do you think Maddison is a better pick than Perez or Barnes, or is it just not worth spending the extra money?
I wouldn't say he's necessarily a better pick. No, I mean he's been criminally out of form for weeks and weeks, right? I think you could rely on him early season to keep ticking over those assists. Even if he didn't have a particularly good game, he'd like take a corner or maybe take a set piece and get an assist. But you can't even rely on him for those at the moment. I think the only FPL return he's had is that goal, that wonder goal against Newcastle, which was quite a few weeks back now, and that's been kind of it. So. Again, I genuinely couldn't tell you why he's been on such a barren run of form. Maybe it's to do with the fact that Vardy can't finish his dinner at the minute either. But no, I wouldn't say he's necessarily a better pick than Barnes or Perez. I think I'd go for one of the other two actually right now.
Yeah, I owned Maddison earlier in the season. I had him for that Newcastle goal. It was an absolute corker from outside. Left foot as well.
Good, wasn't it?
And back then it seemed okay because I don't think Barnes was as much in the team back then. He did go through that phase where he wasn't really in the team that often. But that seems to have changed now. Him and Perez seem to, at times, even getting 80 to 90 minutes as well, whereas usually they were subbed at like kind of 60, 65. So, yeah, right now I'm not sure I would go for him. Obviously, big advantage is absolutely nailed. He's going to start week in, week out, whereas you can't necessarily be sure with the other two. But the teams are in officially now, so we're not looking at in the know accounts, although they are very much in the know because they're correct. So then I'll just read it out. The Leicester team sheet: Schmeichel in goal, of course. Pereira right back, Soyuncu and Evans in the centre with Chilwell. Chowdhury and Pratt in kind of the double pivot, and then Perez, Barnes. Well, actually, it's probably Chowdhury, and it's probably 4-1-4-1, I'd say. Maddison in there, and Barnes and Perez are playing with Iheanacho up front. And it doesn't, annoyingly, it doesn't show me the subs bench for some reason. That's weird. Okay, I'll try and find the subs in a minute, just see if Vardy's on there. They haven't said anything. The
chat can tell us.
Vardy's out. I mean, surely though they've got enough to do Norwich. I know Norwich have been, looking a bit better defensively, but Zimmerman's out now as well. I mean, what are you expecting Leicester to turn them over a bit here, or do you think it'll be close?
No, I was expecting Leicester to win that game. Criminally out of form, aren't they, Norwich? Look dead and buried, I'm afraid to say. Even without Vardy, I still think Leicester will have enough in this game. But you never know. Maybe seeing that team sheet, maybe Norwich will have a look at that and say, well, we've got a bit more of a chance now. But I think you're right about Zimmerman. He is so key for them, not just defensively, but the way that he works those transitions from defence through to midfield. He speeds up that transition through to attack. And without him, the likes of Cantwell and Pukki, as we've seen before, are less effective. So, it's going to be tough for Norwich tonight, I think, even at home.
Yeah, I'm hoping they do the business now. I've got Harvey Barnes in my team, which I should just double. Yeah, I did confirm that. Did I save my team? Yeah, I did. So I'm just looking now. Yeah, I found.
Not again, Andy. Not again.
No, I definitely saved it this time. I found where the subs are. So yeah, Vardy's not even in the squad. So I'm sure within the next hour or so we'll have some news about why that might be. I hope. I mean, given that there was nothing said in press conference and stuff, it's probably just. Just a slight knock or something. Ndidi, again, not playing, so he's on the bench. It would be good to see him back playing week in, week out. I think that would help all our Leicester assets. And then Norwich, I think this is pretty much to be expected. So Krul, Aarons, Hanley, Godfrey, Lewis, Teti, McLean, Buendia in there. I'm sure from team news earlier, Buendia was a bit of a doubt. So maybe maybe it was just fatigue. So good for Norwich to have him back. Obviously, very creative.
Yeah.
Duda Cantwell is in, so if he's coming off your bench, could be decent there. And then, of course, the main man Pukki up front. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it goes. I'm going to hopefully get to watch this, commandeer the TV. But yeah, so you didn't make any transfers in the end, no? You just left it and Salah capped him.
Yeah, Salah captain, Grealish to Fernandes, which was done yesterday after Fernandes got through and actually had a bit of a rest at the end of that United Champions League. Sorry,
you
Andy,
said that earlier. I know. I didn't want to correct you. I was like,
did I say it again?
It'd be good to get back into the Champions League at some point.
Yeah, no worries. So Grealish to Fernandes, yes. Vardy, he just auto sub out for Cantwell now. So let's see whether he can do anything and wipe out my Soyuncu clean sheet.
Yeah. Well, you never know. You could get attacking returns, I suppose. And yeah, my team sheet is basically as is on screen right now, apart from I've done Mahrez to Barnes. So I still have Traore, but he's second on the bench. I've even put Stevens above him because I really just don't think he's going to start. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks for joining us. It was a bit chaotic, as you can imagine, getting that Vardy news in. Thanks very much to Lee as well for kind of last minute-ish joining in. So thanks very much.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
And we will obviously not be back tomorrow because we've done it tonight instead, Breakfast Club. We will be back with all the usual content, Sam vs. Lee, Sam Says, Scoutcast, etc. Next week, good luck in game week 28, and we will see you soon.
Good luck.